Happy New Year.
Happy New Year 2022, baby.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you.
Also to the people at home, I think a week after the New Year's is an appropriate time to get your New Year's in, because after January 7th.
I was going to say the 6th, 7th, I'll allow it.
Okay. No more Happy New Year's. And what we're going to do at the start of this video is say thank you for stumbling across our channel, our little podcast. And for all of you people watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button.
Smash that like button.
Hit the bell. You get notified when we post content so you don't miss out on it due to the algorithm trying to censor what you see. Though I don't think we're big enough where they care about
yet.
us.
Not quite yet.
We got some things to talk about today.
Yeah, we got some good stuff coming
that
up.
was so New York. We got some things to talk about.
To talk about today.
We're going to talk about it.
My dad says talk and coffee.
Take a sip of coffee.
He says coffee.
That's natural.
Yeah,
coffee. There's no other way to say it for me.
Yeah, because
today is also the first time on the podcast where I'm wearing a shirt with a collar.
Yes. With
a
elbow
traditional
patches.
Collar. Oh yeah.
I'm in sweats. I'm in my PJs. I made it look polished with a little bit of lipstick, but here we are.
I like your pants.
Yeah, they're very comfy.
Okay, so you had made in the first episode someone said, who said to stop slouching? Oh, a friend of mine.
Someone said that?
Yeah, she's going to be watching it. Her mom, my friend Lauren, her mom said, tell Mike to stop slouching because it makes him look shorter. And I guess she thought that I was like some taller individual. It's just more comfortable. This is not as comfortable.
Yeah, I prefer this.
I've been crossing. See, there's a lot of wires here that we're going to deal with. And this is the last episode before the new set, which is kind of nice.
I'm excited.
But yeah, so let me eliminate some of these wires
I'm
here.
going to finish munching on this cookie. Do you want to intro us? What are we starting with today?
Well, in the first episode, you talked about people who watch porn are either indirectly or directly, what did you say? Exacerbating or...
They're implicitly...
Or explicitly.
Okay,
right.
With sex trafficking and the exploitation of women and children. And I actually misspoke last time. One thing I said that the U.S. is the number one consumer of child pornography, which is probably true. But what I meant to say is that the U.S. is the number one consumer of child rape videos, which is even worse.
So I think what I wanted to start off by saying is that anybody who watches what James O'Keefe is doing as far as musical theater and his new performative venture in musical theater related to Project Veritas or whatever is either implicitly or explicitly aiding and abetting that narcissism. And so I want to preface this by what happened over the weekend. I've just been seeing these videos, they're on Instagram. They get suggested to me via YouTube. I knew that he is a performer. Somewhat of a performer. Because
I didn't know that.
He was promoting like a theater troupe's performance of Oklahoma that he was in. And it's, the only musical I've ever liked in my life was West Side Story. Mm-hmm. Two gangs, some Puerto Ricans and some Irish people maybe in the Bronx in the 50s battling it out through dance and knives.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, very cool.
Also great music. Never got into any of the other stuff, but so I saw him promoting that. I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. It wasn't until he started injecting the Project Veritas into the performance. So if you hadn't seen it, Google, YouTube, I don't know what.
Do you want to tell people who James O'Keefe is first?
James O'Keefe is the founder of Project Veritas. He's the guy that does the investigative journalism, where I think their first big thing was they exposed Acorn and its relation to helping pimps either hide money or buy houses or something like that. I can't remember of it. But what James does is he does a form of guerrilla journalism where he captures people on hidden cameras or hot mics, and then he exposes the story. He's done it with Planned Parenthood. Mm-hmm. He's done it with a number of political figures, Pfizer, a bunch of school boards. And so the work that he does can be considered important, and some of it obviously is. But then recently at, I guess, AmFest or whatever it was, which is a Turning Point, what do they call it? A conference. Sure, that took place a couple weekends ago. He did this thing where he made like his recent life, and this is something I gotta be conscious of not saying like as much, but he made a performance of his recent life, getting arrested, getting raided by the FBI, and turned it into this musical. And it is the most cringe thing I've seen so far this year. And I follow his personal, I follow Project Veritas, but I follow his personal account on Instagram, and he made some post about something totally unrelated. And I commented, I said, stop doing musical theater.
Mm-hmm.
To which he replied back to me directly. He said something along the lines of, America needs storytellers. I'm a storyteller. We need to tell stories. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, that's what Project Veritas does. You tell stories with investigative journalism. That's what you do. You are a storyteller already.
Mm-hmm.
To turn this into a musical number, I don't know what purpose it serves other than vanity.
Okay, also just to add a little bit of color to what Mike is saying, this was not simply a people get on stage and dance and sing and then leave stage at America Fest. It was an entire segment, isn't even the word. It was an entire, it was as if it were a play.
Right.
That was being unfolded on
stage. It was
stage.
A Broadway number. Imagine going to the Academy Awards and then there's a performance by either a musician or whatever it was. He came out to specifically do this number, and that was it. He didn't stick around and address the audience like all the other people who were there did. And it was just very weird. So anyway, I said what I said, and it was jokingly, but I said verbatim. I said stop doing musical theater. And then followers just came after me, which is, expected. I'm trolling him. I don't expect blowback, or, I do expect blowback, but this one person in particular he was projecting. Everything that he was saying was projecting. He was like, oh yeah, you're a big guy with guns and stuff. Maybe you should stop being a photographer, blah, blah, blah. Don't talk politics. You're a photographer.
Didn't he say you're gay or something?
No, that was someone else that said, his language was, he says, you're a photographer and photographers are fags. That's what he DM'd me. I said, okay.
It was eloquent.
Yeah. But then this guy went on a tirade in the comments about how basically I don't have a right to an opinion because of what I do, which didn't make any sense. But he was projecting a lot of his sort of self-doubt and just non-confidence onto me. And it was just weird. I was like, do a lot of people really love musical theater this much, and especially James O'Keefe's musical theater, that they feel the need to attack me personally?
I think it's also because they don't like people speaking out against TPUSA.
But here's the thing. What I said wasn't rare. On one of his other posts where I think he put the TPUSA performance,
a clip of it.
The majority of the comments were like, this is weird. I don't know what this is. What are you trying to do? This undermines what you really do as far as the journalism. This is not needed. And also, it's not good. And this is what I feel like conservatives just don't get. They don't take the time to really think about these things. Apart from it being a narcissistic venture of his, where he's obviously a performer, but now that he has money, now that he has exposure, he feels that he can just, I guess, perform anytime that he wants, whether people want it or not. But you said, and I think we both agreed on this, that conservatives don't know how to win. Yeah, they don't know what to do when they win.
Yeah, that too.
So it just seems to me like, man, I don't know if I'm just cut off a different cloth, where I just enjoy watching people debate or watching old William F. Buckley videos. But this ain't it, man. This performance just isn't it. It makes us look stupid. And listen, the current state of pop culture, pop music, performance art in 2022, I would be saying the same thing if James O'Keefe got together with Cardi B and they did a number. You know what I mean? But it's also not 1955. It's just the choreography's horrible. It's just bad Broadway.
It was like, and I texted this to you last night. I said it was like watching a mega church put on an awkward rock concert for their youth group.
It's fake.
It's so fake.
There is a phoniness behind it, where whenever I see these new young evangelical preachers wearing Jordans and Gucci sweaters and talking about the Word of God, I'm so disingenuous. It's just like, how can anyone believe you if you're preaching humility and all these things, and you're wearing $3,000 worth of clothing on your body? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I feel the fakeness is what comes through to me, and that it's not fake, but it's not. What purpose does that serve?
So these are kind of my thoughts on it. So it all fits into this umbrella of just trying way too hard. Same thing that mega churches do with youth groups. And just to be clear, I grew up in a mega church, so I have a lot of experience with what they tried to do with the youth. And that's why I texted this to Mike. It's very similar that TPUSA is just trying way too hard to be cool, to be the cool mom, to be, quote, relevant, because they think that they have to be this cool, hip, relevant thing in order to attract and keep conservative youth.
If I was 17 years old and I was at AmFest and I saw that, I would throw tomatoes.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's so not only are they completely missing, they don't understand culture. This is the problem with conservatives that we've always talked about from a broader level, is that conservatives, in many ways, we deserve to lose because we just do not understand culture, and we keep missing the mark over and over again. And also, kind of added to that, TPUSA conferences, TPUSA tries so hard to make things cool for kids that their conferences, I'm telling you this is not hyperbole. It's just like, I was almost cursed. It's just a place where kids go to get high and hook up. Like, that's what these conferences have become. And when you treat youth political conferences as a place where, they have the huge production and the LED lights and the spotlight and the fog machines, and they make everything so cool, obviously it's going to turn into a place where kids are going to treat it as if it's a party or as if it's a music festival. And it's just a cesspool now of kids smoking weed and drinking and hooking up. There's been a lot of instances of sexual assault being thrown under the rug because TPUSA doesn't want this to come to light. And it's just like they're trying way too hard.
What I don't like, again, is the fakeness, because I've met a lot of these conservative influencers who seem to be, when there are no cameras on, seem to just be fake. And I don't find that. The people who I do enjoy are pretty much banned from every platform available. And the ones who are banned are the ones that I pay the most attention to. Gavin,
Gavin.
Nick, John's not there yet, but he might be.
Right.
The ones who just never seem to have any problems with, I always wonder why. And this is not saying, these are probably controlled assets or they're funded by the CIA or whatever, just to help continue the division between two political parties. But it's the same thing I'm talking about, where it's performative. Like that Herschel Walker's son, that is
Christian.
That is, to me, that is the worst representation of conservatism today, because all he's just loud, he's gay, and he's just repeating these talking points where, listen up, you liberals, gas is high, thanks Biden. It's the same.
Actually a pretty good impression.
It's the same thing that the left who criticizes Trump, like, thanks Trump. It's like the thanks Obama. It's
right.
It's if I would have sat down with this kid on a couch, explain to me why you think this, he would have nothing to say, because now, especially with any sort of political influencer, unless you go deep on YouTube where there are debates, but little 60 seconds, reels or stories, it's all just talking points where they don't have to think about anything.
Yeah, I mean, it really brings me back to what I was saying about how there's just conservatives just really deserve to lose because they try way too hard. They're way too obsessed with trying to be cool and hip. And what we're doing is we're losing the fight because we're not focusing on the right things. So, I mean, I think that the question should always be, what are we conserving? If you are a conservative, what are we conserving? And if you're talking about, big political conferences at the level that TPUSA is doing, you really need to ask that question in everything that you do. What are we conserving?
It's like an Apple launch of an iPhone. That's what it felt like. You see Bill Gates jumping
feel like
on stage, or that's Microsoft, but the Steve Jobs.
Yes.
Sorry. But remember Bill Gates had that one, there's the one clip of him and the other CEOs dancing on stage. It's kind of weird, and it's very it's a form of worship, where though during the whole James O'Keefe thing, I don't know if they had mics in the audience, but it was very quiet.
Yeah.
I think people were just saying to themselves, what the hell is this?
I don't know why TPUSA allowed that whole performance to even take place.
Who knows? Listen, and this is, I really don't like attacking people, but I feel like this is due, just because I feel like it's just totally trivializing the actual work that Project Veritas does. Whether you agree with it or not, they obviously do investigative work, and that their work has real world consequences that affect really bad people. But then you're dancing and plopping around on stage just totally demeans that. I don't like it.
Yeah, and I think for those of you listening who may ask the question, well, what do you guys care? Mind your own business. If it makes them happy, blah blah. No, it matters. Because TPUSA is one of the biggest names, if not the biggest name, in conservative youth right now. So it matters what TPUSA does and shows and showcases in their conferences, because
they're at fault a little bit. I think they're at fault just because they had to have known what he was going to do.
Of course they knew. Of course they had a whole media. They had the media coordinated behind it. I mean, it was a very planned, coordinated thing.
I have some other thoughts about why I think he's doing this. I don't want to get into it just because it's pure speculation, and it could be, it would open myself up to a lawsuit if I said it publicly, but I just have feelings. Yeah. And I mean, probably a bunch of you can understand where I'm going with this, but yeah, that's just the one thing as far as culture that I really enjoyed as far as 2021 was, I think the Let's Go Brandon was probably one of the things that they did right, that the conservatives were able to kind of get behind. And, that song, who did the Let's Go Brandon, fuck Joe Biden? Who did that song?
I don't know.
That song's really great.
I never listened to it. I should
just as far as like a hip hop song, really, really cool.
Was it Bryson?
Really great. No, I don't think so. I don't know. My daughter listens to it, loves it. Oh, that and like.
Wait, can you look it up, Joel?
I don't want to talk about. Just on Spotify, it's Let's Go Brandon, and I think it should just be the top. I don't want to talk about people, but I mean, I kind of do. This is a podcast. We're here talking to each other about people, but like, it's
you want to talk shit? Talk shit.
No, it's just I followed Benny Johnson because I thought memes were funny, and then he did what is a literal virtue signal where he put a list of things that conservatives do, and Christians this and blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, this is just as bad as a virtue signal as water is life, science is real. It's just, then when I sent you that thing because he did the same thing at AmFest. He went out there and said, this is just horrible.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry.
It's again. I texted this to you last night. I'm saying this as someone who is Christian. And I practice Christianity. It really, truly makes me uncomfortable. It's like nails against a chalkboard when people incessantly talk about their faith.
Yeah.
Not necessarily talk about their faith, but they talk about what it means to live a Christian life and to be Christian. When they constantly talk about it, that's a red flag to me. And I texted this to you last night. My pastor, his name is Dr. Michael Easley at Stonebridge Bible Church in Brentwood, Tennessee. He said something on his podcast recently that really struck me, and I love it. And he lives this. He said, people will never judge you by what you say. He says, people are always going to judge me by how I treat my wife, whether I take out the trash, and how I interact with the unruly kid at church.
Yeah, he's absolutely right.
And he's absolutely right. And it's so much more about the way that you live and so much less about what you say and what you say Christianity is and what Christianity should be and what good Christian people do. This is why I really like Ali Stuckey. Ali Stuckey speaks, her whole platform is about conservative Christian values. And she does a great job at talking about things from a biblical perspective. And you can tell she lives a Christian life, but she does not speak about Christianity and her faith from a place of superiority.
Sure.
I really appreciate her platform. I think she's one of the best young voices we have in the conservative movement right now. And I love what she does because she's a great example of talking about things from a Christian perspective and living a Christian life without overly talking about it all the time.
Yeah. No, I get that.
And
Joel?
So, does he have the answer to the song?
There's a lot of artists. It looks like Loza Alexander.
Play it. Put the mic to it. That's the one.
This is it?
Have you heard this?
Oh, I have heard clips of this. Yeah.
I love it. It's just a good song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ron loves it.
Does she?
No, it dances around and everything. Thanks, Joel.
Last time I came over, she was dancing to Dreams.
Happy New Year, Joel.
Song. Hey, Joel.
New Year, guys.
Joel's got some sweet braids going on today.
I do think the same.
Yeah.
I need to learn how to braid my own.
I don't know why I said I do.
I do.
Oh, God. How are we looking on time for the first 25?
Are you?
That's your man.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Dead air.
I was going to say dead air.
Yeah.
He's got a good shirt on though.
The Heisenberg shirt's great.
I was. How are we on time, honey?
For the first 25 minutes? Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay. Should we get into the sex ed topic?
Not yet. Let's do that after the break. But here's a question. It's a funny question, but somebody asked us. They responded to the question sticker, and I'll have to give you my answer. Jesus. From Laura Lynn 33188. Do you think the Earth is a dome, or do you think it's a sphere? And I don't know how to approach the flat Earth question because A, I'm not studied on it. B, I don't care enough. And when you start to go down that rabbit hole, you start to get to a place where you say, there's no way that I can believe this. This is absolutely ridiculous. Is everything that I've been shown my entire life wrong or made up?
Yeah, fake.
Because if you think about it, if it's a dome, right? If it's a dome, the sun starts off on this side and it goes all the way around like it should, right?
Yeah.
If it's a sphere, that means that it would be going around like this, right? Because we're spinning and then going around the sun, or is the sun? See, that's what I'm saying. I don't know enough. I don't care. I honestly don't care.
I don't know enough.
It's very interesting how there are large glaciers on the southern pole of the Earth, and yet they're not falling off of the Earth, because it's just, if an Earth is a ball, how could something just be kind of standing at the bottom of it and not falling off? And then you'll say gravity, but then, gravity's a weaker force compared to electromagnetism. So I guess is electromagnetism keeping somebody on? It's just, I don't care. I just had to address the question. Don't ask any more flat Earth questions.
I don't know. Yeah, please don't. I'm not your guy.
See, even me doing this, the sun is not going around us, we're going around the sun. So why am I saying, well, the sun goes around us? It's like, no, aren't we going around the sun?
We're also.
Everything's spinning, right?
Yeah.
But we're all going around the sun. Who knows? I don't care. Joel, why don't you do the double tap for us? So what's the next thing?
Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about
doing the camera
is there has recently been a lot of TikTok videos of teachers who are self-proclaimed trans or queer people who post these videos bragging and joking about how they are going behind parents' backs to teach children about sexuality, queerness, transness, pronouns, etc. And so these teachers think it's so cute and funny and hilarious that they are teaching your children about all of these subjects that parents, quote, refuse to teach their kids about.
I'm also more inclined to believe that it's one of those things where I say things that didn't happen for 500, Alex. They just go on TikTok and say these things. Who knows if they're actually happening or not?
Right.
But now, given the world that we given the world that we live in, yeah, and we will leave one day. Mm-hmm. But given the world that we live in, I wouldn't be surprised.
But I do think it's happening because, and I'll get more into this as I answer the question more. It's definitely happening now. The question is on how wide of a scale is it happening, but it's definitely happening. So all these videos were going viral, and I've always thought this, even before, okay, not always, but I have thought this for a long time, even before I had a child. And now that I'm a mother, I think it even more strongly. Sexuality should never, ever, ever be taught in school by teachers. There's just no reason ever for it to be taught. And so this question, I put this on my Twitter, I put it on my Instagram, and a lot of people asked, well, what do you think about sex ed being taught in school, right? Because a lot of people were like, well, okay, I agree that you shouldn't teach about sexuality, but what about sex ed being taught in school? So let's get into this today. I do not believe that sex ed should ever be taught in school. I don't care how old the kids are. I don't care if they're 18, 14, 10, whatever. Sex ed should not be taught. And I'm going to break this into 3 parts because I've been thinking a lot about this. I mean, watching these videos have actually made me so angry. I watch these videos and I'm like, if a teacher ever bragged about teaching my daughter about sexuality, my goodness.
I'm with you.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean, Mike?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, I would, goodness, we're jujitsu people. My husband's a black belt. And the reason that you learn martial arts is to be at peace with people. But good Lord, I would use that chokehold on them so quickly if they ever talked about sexuality to my children. So let's now talk about sex ed. No, sex ed should never be taught to kids. So first of all, here's why. Sex is inherently a private, intimate thing in life. It is not a public matter. Sex is not a public matter. Now, I know that the media and mainstream culture, entertainment, TV, books, music, etc., they want you to believe that sex is a public matter that should be talked about, that should be viewed through pornography, that should be viewed on TV, on movies, everywhere. We should be talking publicly about sex. Shout your sex from the rooftops. I don't care. Sex will always be a private, intimate matter. That's actually what makes sex so special and so unique, because it is a private, intimate thing between you and your partner, right? And so I don't care where our culture has taken us. If you look at our culture, a few short decades ago, sex was still a private matter. Yes, you had some performance artists on the fringe who would make sex a more public thing, but it was always on the fringe and it was always taboo, because it's inherently taboo, because sex always was, is, and will be a private matter. Right. So can we agree on that? I know some people will disagree with me. I don't care if you disagree with me. You can have your own opinion. That opinion is wrong, but you are entitled to your opinion. Sex is private. So that being said, sex ed should not be taught in school because it is a private, intimate matter. And private, intimate matters should be spoken about and dealt with in the family, with parents, by parents, because every single child approaches the age of when they're ready to talk about sex at a different time.
Yeah.
So for some kids, it may be as young as 11.
Right.
Some kids, you may have to wait until they're 15, 16.
Sure.
It really depends on the child. And this is sort of the downfall of classroom learning in general. You can only go at the pace of the slowest child in classroom learning.
Right.
But with sex ed, there are real consequences. Now, there aren't real lifelong consequences to teaching history too early to kids or teaching math too early. There are very, very, very real consequences to teaching sex to kids at too young of an age. There are real consequences to that. So this is why I'm a firm believer that parents should be in control of the conversations about sex. Now, people say, well, what about biology? Yeah, sure. You can talk, if you're talking about human biology, you can say matter-of-factly in a scientific way that a man has a penis, just like you would say that the femur is the longest bone in the body. Okay, that's fine, but that's not sex ed. Okay, saying that a woman has ovaries and a uterus and a vagina, that's not sex ed. That's just talking about biology. You can say that as like a small part of your lesson about human biology.
Yeah, we had health class.
That's right, exactly. But we're not, it should not go farther than that and open the door to talk about what sex is, how sex works, how to practice safe sex. Also, another sub topic to this being sex being intimate and private is that sex is inherently tied to morality. And every parent and every family has their own values and mindset of morality about sex. For some parents, maybe they want to teach abstinence. For some parents, maybe they want to teach safe sex practices. They want to teach kids how to use condoms, how to use birth control. It is up to the parents. And so either one, it could be considered immoral, right? So say you have kids whose parents want to teach them abstinence, then they go to school and they learn about condoms and birth control. Not appropriate. Not appropriate. You can also flip that. You have kids whose parents want to teach them about contraception and condoms. You send them to school, they teach about abstinence. Not appropriate. You know why? Because it's up to the parents. Sex is private, okay? So that's point number one. Now, number two, I had somebody comment, a few people comment and say things along the lines of, somebody said this literally, it takes a village to raise a child. And sometimes parents, they don't get it right and they don't teach their kids well about sex and sex ed. Nobody agrees with you more that it takes a village to raise a child. My husband and I made serious financial sacrifices to move my parents to Tennessee. We bought a house that was big enough for all of us to live together because it was really important to me to have intergenerational living. Okay, I may be born and raised American. I'm culturally American, but there's a lot of stuff with me and my husband. We're old school Asian. We both have Asian moms. And there's a lot of value, I believe, in intergenerational living. And I also knew that if I wanted to continue my lifestyle of working, training at the level I do, living my life the way that I do, I knew I would need help.
Yeah.
Our mutual friend who named the show, he asked me on a phone call a week or two ago, he says, how do you do it all, Gina? I was like, how do you have a baby and be a present mother and be home but work and also train and stay fit?
Got the grandparents with me.
I have the grandparents. It's not me. I'm not doing anything extraordinary or different. I just knew that if I wanted to have the kind of life that I wanted, I would need my parents' help. And my mom is a huge help in me raising my daughter.
It'll also help your grandparents live longer. If that's
also
what you
help
want
my
to.
grandparents, help them with their health. And as they get older, we can be there for each other. All that to say, there's nobody on this planet who agrees more that it takes a village to raise a child.
Sure.
But listen to me very carefully. The government is not your village. The government is not your village.
What happens if private schools want to implement sex
That's
ed
a great
classes?
question. And my answer to that is up to the parents. You have authority to pull your kids out of private schools or to demand that the private school does something because your money is funding them.
Right.
Okay. So private schools are a different conversation. If you're totally okay with sending your kid to a private school and the private school chooses to teach about sex ed and teach about anal sex, whatever, the parents have control over that because their money goes to that school.
Right.
State-run institutions should never speak about sex ed or sexuality because the government is not your village. The government is your employee. The government are your employees. They are not your parents. They are not your family. They have no business whatsoever in raising your child. And this is my second point. Because we have been indoctrinated and brainwashed to believe that the government plays any other role in the world than to protect and preserve your constitutional rights.
Right.
They have no other role. This is why the government should never be involved in healthcare. The government should never be involved with childcare or family care because the government is not your nanny. It's not your village. It's not your family. They are simply there to protect and preserve your constitutional rights. And this is the problem that we're seeing right now in our country. You have a young generation of Gen Z. They think that the government is there to make your life better. They think the government is supposed to help you along the way.
I honestly don't even think that Gen Z has any positive feelings toward the government, not because they know better, but I don't even know if they care. I don't know how aware they are of the government's involvement in their everyday life is yet. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they're necessarily, I think they could be, to be using the word indoctrinated, brainwashed, if you want to take it a little bit further, that a bigger federal government is a better system than a smaller, more local government. That's probably true. But I don't know. Do you think that they're being slowly indoctrinated to thinking that the government is the end all be all as far as, how your life will turn out?
I think I do think that they are. I think in school they're taught a lot that the government's role is to make people's lives easier. I think also in entertainment and media, you see a lot more conversations about how the government is supposed to help us, is supposed to help the poor. This is also talking about government handouts. Like a lot of these kids think that the government is supposed to help you financially. Again, the government is only there. And this is what the founding fathers had in mind philosophically. They knew that the government only existed to protect and preserve our rights. So this is where a lot of our problems come from as a society. And one of those problems is thinking that sex ed should be taught in school because we think that the government should help the family raise the kids.
I'm with you 100% that I think that those conversations and that sort of learning should be up to and done by parents. And personally, I don't think I ever had a conversation with my father about sex. Ever.
Yeah. I had a conversation with my mom, but
right. It was probably, his personality.
Right.
But I had most of those talks with my mom.
So I want to bounce off that and go, this relates a lot to my third point, because a lot of people then respond and say, well, we need sex ed because not all parents teach their kids about sex. Okay. I agree that can be an issue, but you don't just eliminate the idea of parents teaching kids about sex just because a minority of parents, maybe it's not a minority, just because some parents don't teach their kids about sex.
Yeah.
So the answer is not for the government to step in. Okay. And this is something that a lot of people need to understand. The nonprofit sector is year after year much more successful in assisting with family care than the government ever will be.
Do you think that these teachers who are promoting sexuality, queerness, transness, whatever, do you think they're doing that because they don't have enough fulfillment in their own lives that they have to project their feelings onto these kids in order to get attention?
I think it is a form of narcissism. These teachers are so obsessed with talking about themselves these teachers are coming out to their students.
Those videos, I don't understand them. When
it is a form of narcissism.
Listen, I don't know if this has to do with gender, not sexuality, but LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, those are sexualities. That's who you're sexually attracted to. If you're gay, you're sexually attracted to men. If you're lesbian, you're sexually attracted to women. If you're bi, you're sexually attracted to both. So if you're coming out as bi to your 4th grade class, you're just telling them, hey, I like to have sex with both men and women.
Yeah.
Why are you exposing that area of your life to kids?
It would be the same thing if it were a straight teacher, if it were a man saying to kids, I like to have sex with women. Who cares? It's totally irrelevant to a child's education.
It's not only irrelevant, it's extremely inappropriate.
It's grooming. It's a form of grooming.
That's right. I agree.
You have these teachers on TikTok who are bragging about teaching preschoolers, 4 or 5-year-olds, about sexuality. I mean, jail, right to jail.
Well, what is that one story, or the one thing where it was a girl, because I saw someone post this and it says this is clear grooming behavior, where a girl, I don't know if she's like some non-binary person or trans, a teacher who were saying that I guess the school board was upset about, or parents were upset at the school board because they were saying that some teachers would take kids to the side and pretty much convince them that they were trans.
Yes.
And then get them into these therapy groups.
It's recruitment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to.
What is that?
Yeah, I want to talk more about this.
Can they be criminally prosecuted?
I don't know about that. I think so.
How are we doing on time? This is the last time we'll have to ask. This is the last episode where we'll have to ask about time. Okay, we got 10 minutes.
So I want to talk about this because this is part of the third point, and I mean part of all the points. The reason that we have arrived at this point where teachers think that they own your child and can recruit them into the LGBT LMNOP community, or even worse than that, take your kids behind your back and have them go and get hormone therapy during school hours. The reason we're here...
Is that a thing that's happening?
That's a thing that's happening. And I can tell you more. All that to say, the reason that we're here is because we opened the door to talk about sex in school in the first place. When you open the door, a slippery slope is real. When you even open the door to talk about any kind of sex or sexuality, and all these idiots say, oh, sexuality and gender aren't related. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Sexuality and gender issues are related. I don't care. You can say it until you're blue in the face. They are so obviously related.
Yeah.
And the reason that we have arrived here, because I hate myself, I'm watching the Sex and the City reboot. I hate that I love the old Sex and the City, but I do. It's kind of like, you grew up with it as a young adult, and I just have to watch the new episodes, and they are just so bad. They're so terrible. But all that to say, the most recent episode, Charlotte and her husband Harry go to the school and find out that their daughter has given herself a new name and different pronouns behind their back, and the entire school, including teachers, students, and other students' parents, have been using the new name and the new pronouns for their daughter. This is not just something you see on HBO. My cousin and his wife work in the school systems in New York City. Okay, I'm not going to give too much information. I'm going to keep them fairly anonymous. I have a lot of family in New York. My cousin and his wife, every time they come to visit us for the holidays, they always tell us stories about how there is a coordinated effort amongst teachers, administrators, and even other students' parents to hide from parents that their child has, quote, transitioned, is now going by a different name, going by different pronouns, has adopted a whole new identity, and in many cases are going to get hormone therapy during school hours.
How? Or how and why? Wait, why?
So here's an example of how they do it. So a person who works in the IT department, they will get an email from the headmaster, and on that email is copied all of the teachers of that student, the counselor of the school, the diversity and inclusivity officer.
Are these public schools?
One is public, one is private.
Okay.
My family members who work in these school systems. And the headmaster will tell the IT person that so-and-so's, this girl's name needs to be changed in the system. And then the headmaster informs every teacher and faculty on that email that if they ever come into contact with the student's parents, that they are supposed to use the child's previous pronouns and name. so that they don't inform the parents that the child is going by a different name and pronouns.
This is documented, right?
This is real. My cousin has shown me emails. This is happening around the country. This is the fight for our generation. I don't want to hear, oh, well, we should focus on more important things like tax cuts. This is the fight of our generation. This is what's happening right now. This is going to it already is irrevocably changing the course of our country and our society.
How is that legal?
I have no idea, but it's being allowed. You know why? Because of weak, cowardly parents.
Can parents bring suit?
I think they can, but I honestly think that most parents, they're too afraid to. I don't know what it is. I also think a big part of it, we can have another conversation about this, is weak men, weak fathers who are allowing the shit to happen in their homes and in their child's schools.
But I mean, think about it. They don't even know. I guess another issue is the relationship that you have with your own child.
Yes.
Like how involved in their lives are you?
How involved are you?
You know, being in New York City, maybe both parents work, probably busy all the time, you know, trying to be able to afford living in New York City, that they don't have time to have a relationship with their kids, or at least.
But they eventually find out.
Sure. I get that. But yeah, as a dad, that would make me livid.
Yeah. And this is how, so going back to the Sex and the City episode.
Yeah.
The father, Harry, was livid. And he said something like, it's a very humbling thing to learn about your daughter from other adults who are not her parents. And it's just like, this is what's happening. We've arrived here because however many.
He was upset, but then said that?
Yeah.
That it's humbling?
That it's humbling. Yeah. So now it's almost seen as a thing of, it's a good thing to learn about your child in this way.
Well, there are also parents who wear their own transgender kids like a medal around their necks.
Yeah, that's another conversation.
It could be,
really do.
Yeah, status symbols amongst their woke friends and neighbors, I'm sure.
Because remember now that trans and queer they're a form of social status in the same way that oppression is. You know, it's a form of social currency.
I think it might just be an attention thing. I think there are people that just don't get enough attention, and they have to totally, completely, you know, Clark Kent themselves into a totally different person in order to get attention.
Yeah, it is. They're starved for attention. And also, I think that we're cursed by peace. We're cursed by peace. Yeah. We're living in the best era.
That's my line.
The most technologically advanced era of human history. And we have to find new problems to invent. And so these kids and even the parents invent these new problems about how difficult and challenging their life is because their child is trans.
This wouldn't have happened during the Depression.
Can you imagine somebody during the Depression talking about pronouns?
No.
So getting back to my third point, the third point is that, what was I saying about my third point again? We're going to, this opens the door for parents, for teachers and state sanctioned institutions like public schools to think that they own your children. So this is where it's gotten us. So that's why all of that to say, it's a very long way to say that sex ed should never be taught in school. Now, getting back to what I was saying, the third point, what do we do if parents don't teach their kids about sex?
Right.
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
The answer is not the government. The answer, I believe, is how the nonprofit sector serves families. And so in this case, the nonprofit sector is very successful, much more successful than the government will ever be in assisting parents with childcare, right? So I think that it is a good idea to have certain nonprofits educate parents on how to talk about sex with their kids. I think that's a really great solution. Another thing that people like to comment, this is a really stupid comment. This is a very low IQ comment. They say rates of teen pregnancy and STD contraction is rising because we're not teaching sex ed in school. You morons. Decades ago, when sex ed was never talked about in school, we had lower rates of teen pregnancy and STDs. We do not have high rates of teen pregnancy and STDs because we're not teaching sex ed. We have high
porn.
Yes, because of our culture.
That just seems like the most legitimate reason, other than especially if you're seeing, you know, if there's porn with no protection and they don't tell kids how to protect themselves against these STDs and stuff like that, they're not going to know. So they're just going to go and mirror what they see.
And it's because we now live in a culture that lies to children and says that sex is a public matter and that it's not a private, intimate thing between two people that should be treated with the utmost care. That is why we have a culture that worships sex. You turn on the TV, you can see people intercourse, blowjobs all over the place. You now have the show Euphoria on HBO about teenagers doing drugs and having sex all the time. It is our culture. That's why we're having teen pregnancies. A child who grows up in a home without a father is 9 times more likely to become pregnant as a teenager or to experience teen pregnancy. So either a boy or girl, you're 9 times more likely to experience teen pregnancy. It's
Daddy issues.
It's not because sex ed isn't being taught enough. It's because our culture is obsessed with sex and because the nuclear family is failing. I'm going to just stop
and
now.
Rant. Okay. Joel, you can double tap it. One of the second to last double taps left in this world.
Tired after that. I got 6 whole hours of sleep last night, though, so I'm fired up.
That's good.
That's really good.
Nice.
Better than the night before.
What was the next thing that we wanted to talk about? Because there were a couple different topics where I guess we could have gotten into, but
there was one short little thing I want to talk about.
Because I'll go back in the text. You bring it up and go along.
That video I sent you. So there's a fitness guy, Shaun T. He used to be with Beachbody. And I actually used to do his workouts. He did like the Insanity workouts many, many years ago.
I used to do Insanity.
Insanity was awesome. And so he was always a fitness weight loss trainer guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he just posted a reel on Instagram and he said something about how he's not down with weight loss, right? He thinks weight loss is a silly thing to chase.
This is going to be where your crowd identifies more with what you're saying.
Yeah. My crowd, they like it when I talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so in the comments, in the caption, he wrote that attempting to lose weight can induce extra internal trauma.
I would have thought the opposite, that it expels internal trauma physically.
I'm so sorry. Do you feel traumatized because you have to eat more protein? I'm so sorry. Do you feel traumatized because you have to stop eating McDonald's and refined sugars? Is that what trauma is now? I was telling this to my husband on the way here, and he said these people are so spoiled. Americans are so spoiled that they actually think that trying to lose weight is traumatic.
Yeah.
He's from Brazil, grew up in a very impoverished area of Brazil. And many times when he was a child, if there was just beans and rice to eat, that's just what you ate. It's just, he grew up in a very different life and culture than we did. And he sees things like this and he's told me in the car, he's like, people are so spoiled. They think that this is actually trauma. They're redefining what trauma is.
Well, it's just, we were talking about this before where it's just, it's just an inverted reality that we're living in, where you can tell someone, hey, or even if you're a doctor, there are now these things that I've been seeing on Instagram where you just see them on libs of TikTok, or they're ripped from TikTok, where, a bigger woman will go in and say that I'm tired of having my doctor talk about my weight in relation to my health. And it's just like, they're not doing it to be mean. They're doing it because A, it's their job and it's directly correlated to your health. If you're 300 pounds, it's probably not good for your health. If you're 300 pounds, 5'3", not good for your health. If you're 300 pounds, a man,
an
and
NFL player.
6'2", depending, like if there's more muscle to fat, I don't know too much about it. I'm guessing what is healthy and what isn't healthy, but it's probably not good for your heart if you are significantly overweight and don't exercise. Because the one video that I showed you where the girl she didn't look like she was terribly overweight or fat, but she said that the doctor said that she was in good shape. And I said, there's no way. Because even just looking, you can look at me and I might wheeze after a mile run. That's just because I don't run. I don't run a lot. If I ran a lot, that probably wouldn't be the case. But I'm not in the best shape of my life. But if you looked at me, you'd be like, oh, he's in shape. But I'm not. Yeah. I'm getting tired just kind of talking a lot. But seriously, I don't understand where we got to a world where promoting weight loss as it relates to health is a bad thing. If you're just promoting weight loss just to promote weight loss, especially to bigger people, I could almost see how that would feel like an attack. But usually, it's done out of respect to someone's health, and obviously, being underweight is not good for one's health either.
It's not, but the
overall
not
message
is
is
bad for you as being
exercise, lose excess weight, fat, cholesterol, or not fat, but calories. Or I don't know what I'm talking about.
The whole point is that there's nothing wrong with wanting to lose weight. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be lean and to look better and to feel better and to improve your health. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm so sick of every January, all of these virtue signalers getting on and trying to play white knight and hero and savior. Shaun T has like an 8-pack. The dude is ripped and he's getting on and telling you don't need to lose weight. You don't need to.
Maybe he likes big girls.
well, he's gay, so maybe he likes big dudes.
Maybe
But
he
his
likes big
husband is
boys.
also ripped. His husband has an 8-pack and is also ripped. But anyway, I'm just so sick of all these people every January vilifying weight loss as if it's some unhealthy thing. We're now living in the upside down, where there was another viral video I forgot to send to you, where a girl actually got on and explained for a full minute why being overweight is good for you. Being fat
I may have seen something
is good
along
for you.
those
So
lines.
we're now living in the upside down, where up is down and down is up and right is wrong and wrong is right, where being fat is good for you now. It's just all that to say. Also, I will just plug my health challenge. 8-week health challenge starts this Monday, January 10th. If you want to improve your health and your life and feel better, and yes, look better, nothing wrong with that, you can join. Go to gina.locals.com. You got to be a subscriber. It's only $7 or $8. I forgot. $8 a month. And I'm going to
That's
take you
nothing.
through. It's nothing. I'm going to take you through an 8-week
It's
program.
the price of 2 coffees or 8 McChickens.
I talked a lot today. What else do we have?
Well, I mean, I didn't think that we were going to have to bring it up, but I guess everybody else is talking about it, so I just might as well. I thought Jack Murphy was Tom Segura up until yesterday. I didn't know who that was. And then everybody's talking about this dude, Jack Murphy. And from what I gather, I didn't know who he was until last week. I guess he's a guy who's one of these kind of like alpha males. I'll teach you how to be, a manly man. And
Jacked brunch. Did you see what jacked brunch
I
is?
saw, yeah, it's so stupid. Like, you pay money to
Nick
go have brunch
Fuentes
with
was
the guy.
like
Yeah.
maybe more like jacked off brunch.
So apparently this guy, is he conservative, or does he come off as conservative?
He
Quote,
claims
unquote,
to be conservative
Okay,
now.
sure. So however many years ago he wrote some blog post on his blog talking about how he would enjoy having his wife go off and have sex with other men, and then would do porn on some website to get paid with him and his current wife, I think. And a whole controversy started because I guess someone on someone who hosted a show asked him a question about that article
In a super chat.
Right, based off of what people were asking her to ask him. So I think that she was, a little bit ignorant on what that article
She was
about.
unaware, yeah.
Unaware, ignorant. And then he totally and inappropriately maybe like went off on her for no good reason. And then rather than just kind of nip it right there, decided to go on a bunch of other popular YouTuber shows and talk about it. So he's just kind of like, he just seems like an attention kind of guy. But I swear to God, when I was watching him on, I think it was Slightly Offensive, I was like, oh, Tom Segura grew a beard. I'm like, oh, I didn't know he would go on a political show or anything like that. I'm sorry, Tom. I didn't know. I honestly didn't know.
Oh my
But then everybody's talking
gosh.
about this, and I just said, I'm always weary of guys who try to teach other men how to be men. They always come off like scam artists. I don't believe them.
Or anybody who calls himself an alpha male. If you're an alpha male, you do not have to say you're an alpha male.
It's one of those kind of things where, Trump would talk about his IQ being so high.
Yeah.
And it's just like one of those things where, if your IQ is really high, you don't need to go about promoting it. You usually
It usually just speaks for itself.
right, exactly.
Yeah, and then since he was going on all these shows to try to explain while he freaked out on Sydney and cursed her out, then it came to the surface that's when it came to the surface that he was doing all this porn with like a dildo in his butt and stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, he brought that upon itself. It's stuff that he did. And now that other people are calling him out on it, he's feeling personally offended. I know that he's gotten a couple YouTubers deplatformed, a couple people banned on Twitter.
Oh,
So
really?
he's going after people.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, don't have time for guys like that.
My friend Savannah with one N, sent
Yeah.
me the screenshot of one of his porn videos or whatever, and she said, "I'm so sorry, Gina. I'm going to wake up and choose violence. If I had to see it, so do you."
Oh God.
Thanks a lot, Sav.
Here's a couple questions that we can get into. People's questions that we may as well
No more flat Earth
talk about
questions,
that.
right?
No. Those
'Cause
are
I'm ill-equipped.
Those are gone. These two questions are kind of tied into each other. A buddy of mine sent me in this question. He said, how can politicians credibly drain the swamp when they're rich Ivy League grads? He said Hawley, for example. And then the other question are, who are some rhinos to vote out in 2022? Going back to the first question, how can politicians credibly drain the swamp when they are rich Ivy League grads? I think there are two things that can be done about that. One is term limits.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is once someone leaves Congress, they can't go work for a lobbying organization.
Mm-hmm.
Then the third thing would be to totally get rid of lobbying organizations. It used to be a thing where, your constituents were your lobbyists. And now that, private entities and private businesses are lobbying, government employees, especially Congress people, senators and stuff like that, there's just plenty of availability of corruption.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if these people are able to make money off of these lobbying groups and companies, they're just going to want to stay in Congress and they're going to want to stay in Senate forever.
Yes.
So I think if you impose term limits, which would never happen, but I think that would be a good way to do it. Every senator, every congressperson gets 2 years. That's it. Once you're out, you're out.
You're out.
You can't join a lobbying company. And in a perfect world, lobbying organizations wouldn't be able to exist. I think that's the first part of that question.
Yeah.
And the second one is rhinos who can get voted out.
Dan Crenshaw.
Dan Crenshaw is one of them. As far as other rhinos, Cheney. Liz Cheney.
Yeah, for sure.
She can get voted. I mean, I'm not too, again, when it comes to specific politicians, unless I've seen, any sort of sound bites or news clips of them, I'm really unaware. I think our Tennessee representatives are pretty good.
From what I know, although we really, really want to see Robbie Starbuck in a congressional seat in 2022.
I'll have to do more research.
He's great.
Yeah.
I knew I would vote for him. I know this sounds crazy, but I knew I would definitely vote for him when I went to his house and spent some time with his family. He's got 3 kids, and they are the most well-behaved, well-spoken, intelligent children I think I've seen in a really long time. And he's done such a good job with keeping his kids off of social media.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know it may sound crazy to some people, but you can tell a lot about a person and how tenacious they are and how strong they are by what their children are like.
I would, if we ever got him on the show to talk to him, I would really love to ask him what's the motivation for wanting to work in Congress.
Yeah, I mean, he's answered that. I think we should have him on the show and have him answer that.
Yeah.
He's such an interesting guy, and I've never ever gotten psyched about congressional candidates or anybody really running for office. But I'm a huge fan of Robbie.
Yeah, I just want to know what the motivation is.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I don't know too many people personally who want to be public servants.
Yeah, his family's coming over to our house for dinner on Sunday night, so I'll ask him to come on the show.
Okay, great. That'd be great. Someone just asked this question. I guess with Dan Crenshaw and Marjorie Taylor Greene drama, what is up with that dude lately? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't watch too much about the drama. All I know is that MTG got deplatformed from Twitter.
And then Crenshaw didn't vote on a recent bill.
Something like that.
I think that if he did vote in his party's direction, I think the bill would have stalled because it would have been tied yays versus nays.
He's just, I'm not going to say too much about him because I know a couple of interactions that he's had with people that I have worked with. He's just not, he's not it.
Also, I mean, I don't know if, going to an Ivy League school has anything to do with it about draining the swamp. Obviously, there are legacy people who just don't leave Washington ever. But I don't know if it has anything to do with Ivy Leagues and you go into secret societies and stuff like that, where these people are just placed into government positions just because of, going to those specific schools. Draining a swamp. Unless you have a total and complete burn it by fire down of Congress and Senate, I don't think you're ever going to be able to drain a swamp because people don't like giving up power easily. Right.
No, they don't. Joe Rogan just said this when he was talking to Tim Dillon, my friend, on his show. He said human nature is that once you have power, you're not going to give it up.
Right.
And he's 100% right.
A lot of the comments that we're getting on the YouTube videos, well, not a lot of them, but just because there aren't too many comments, but of the comments that we do get, people are saying that they're really excited for you to start talking about immigration. And obviously we can leave it to the next show or the show after, depending on if we have a guest or not.
Right.
But I mean, what aspect of immigration did you want to talk about?
Well, I am really a proponent of strict immigration laws. And I do think that it's a good discussion to have about whether we should just close the borders for 5 to 10 years and just halt all immigration for a little while, because people, the woke crowd especially, they put a bad name to assimilation. But assimilation is a good thing. And I think the more that we assimilate immigrants to American culture, the better off our country will be as a whole. One of the reasons why countries like Sweden, Norway, Denmark are really successful. Japan is because they have a homogenous population where they all share the same culture. And America is the only country that they get offended if you say that immigrants should assimilate to our culture, if you go to any other country, those same people say it's offensive to not adopt their culture.
But it's not even a culture aspect. It's more of a, listen, share the same language.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Traditions, I guess, are, and I mean, people who come over here legally, I mean, they kill themselves to get citizenship. You should see how proud, like, one of the saddest things is my grandfather was like killed really shortly after he became a citizen, but it was like one of like the proudest moments of his life. He just always wanted to be an American citizen. And I've never understood when people say, and politicians say, that America is a country of immigrants. I don't like that. I think America is a country of citizens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just saying that America is a country of immigrants kind of devalues what it is to be a citizen of the country.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think every immigrant that comes here aspires to be a citizen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just kind of, obviously it plays a political role to say something like that, but I don't think that's thought about deeply enough.
Yeah.
We're a country of citizens.
We are a country of citizens. I mean, my mom immigrated here.
Same.
A lot of my family immigrated here. And I think that for people who want to immigrate here legally,
the times are different as well. I mean, there wasn't a welfare state set up in the early 1900s. There wasn't really as big as a welfare state as there is today, where people really had, you hear these stories of people coming over here with $12 in their pocket, $1 in their pocket, coming over from, Italy, Germany, Ireland, wherever. Yeah. It's these crazy stories, and these people who were able to achieve, generational success.
Yeah.
And they didn't have that with any sort of social safety net under them.
Exactly.
They kind of just got off the boat in Ellis Island, ended up in,
exactly
wherever,
right.
Lower Manhattan, and, did what they did. It's just, I think it's a very different time now, and people have to address that. The times are different.
Yeah, and I think that because people truly misunderstand economics, they really don't get how much of a toll it takes on middle America to have mass immigration. And it really, truly does put people out of work, put American citizens out of work, and it drives down wages. And it really has a tremendous impact on our society and on the economy. And people, they think it's offensive and they think it's not compassionate. No, compassion is truth. And the truth is, and also compassion is caring for your own. And I think that American citizens should be put first. I think that we should take care of the millions of Americans who are suffering here, homeless, drug addicts, whatever. We have a huge opioid problem in this country. And why the hell are we prioritizing illegal immigrants over American citizens? I will never, ever, ever understand that.
Well, let's ponder that question, and then we can come back for it.
Yes.
For the next episode. I think we could just leave it there.
Yeah, that's a good place to start.
This was a good episode.
Yeah, I got really fired up.
Yeah, you did. I am also trying to be a little bit more calm, just because I've been watching a lot of William F. Buckley videos. And William, have you watched a lot of old firing line videos?
No.
For those of you who don't know, William F. Buckley founded National Review, the magazine National Review, a big sort of huge conservative magazine today, but also I believe he started back in the 50s. And William F. Buckley was this guy who is, I believe he lived in Connecticut, but he's one of these old New York sort of well-off, waspy gentlemen who would talk with the air of like a very faint English accent. And that's what people did. Like Audrey Hepburn kind of spoke like that in Breakfast at Tiffany. But he had a great show called Firing Line, where you would, if you YouTube William F. Buckley Firing Line, Milton Friedman was always on there, Thomas Sowell was always on there, but he would bring on, different people from the Black Panthers. Who else would he have on? Muhammad Ali. He had on who is that? The poet who wrote Howl. Allen Ginsberg. So just a bunch of different people. And it's just these well-measured conversations where I kind of don't want to fly off the handle, just because after watching William F. Buckley, he'd sit there in his suit and he'd lean back in his chair and he'd kind of just, and why don't you think the Black Panthers can achieve this sort of equality that you speak of? Just like that. And he told Gore Vidal he was going to punch him in the face. It's a great documentary. You watch this documentary called Best of Enemies, and it's basically the start of on-camera debates between two different political ideologies, where Gore Vidal sat down with William F. Buckley during the Chicago Democratic National Convention in 1968, where, I mean, there were riots I think every day that the convention was being held. And they did a debate on ABC where it was just like 5 or 6 minutes before coverage of it, and they got into it pretty badly. And William F. Buckley said he would smash you in the goddamn face.
Really?
I love it. And
Send that to me.
That's why I'm trying to be a little bit more measured now, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think the only time you've ever gotten animated is when you talked about the COVID letter.
Yeah, because I mean, that's just stupid. I mean, now that I have family who's directly affected by that, and not even physically, but just as far as being able to provide for their family, it just like that comes from such a place of like self-righteousness that I couldn't stand it. But now, since I've been told I have a very ASMR voice.
Oh, someone told you that?
I'll try to be a little bit quieter.
That's a lovely compliment.
Welcome to the show. Yeah, it is, right?
I hope my voice is also pleasant.
Now we're just whispering. But I think this is going to be the last episode where people see us presented like this.
Yeah.
I think so.
Last time. No, we'll have the brick wall for the next one, right?
You won't really notice
won't
it.
really see
but
it.
yeah. But
I'm really
yeah,
excited.
like, subscribe, hit the subscribe.
Smash that like button.
Smash the like button. Leave us comments on Instagram. Go
Share
follow
it.
us on Instagram. Download the episodes on Spotify and Apple Music. Until next time, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.